800 AM, the Persian Gulf. The cockpit of the EA-18G Growler is a storm of flashing red lights as a Russian-made S-300 battery secures a terminal burn-through lock. 248 N-6 interceptors surge from their vertical launch tubes along the Ukrainian coast, accelerating to 4,500 miles per hour. The aircraft snaps into a 9G brake as the first missile detonates 50 feet off the wing. At the exact microsecond of the explosion, the Growler's high-gain jamming pods unleash a concentrated burst. A malicious data packet, known as the darker weapon, races through the S-300's command link, slipping past every firewall in the Iranian integrated air defense network. A second interceptor screams past the canopy, missing by less than 20 feet. The EA-18G Growler is crippled and leaking hydraulic fluid, but the payload is now inside the wires. The fight has moved from sky to circuitry. While the Growler struggles to remain airborne 150 meters to the south, the USS Abraham Lincoln cuts a white scar across the water at 35 knots. Its four massive propellers push a 100,000-ton hull to its physical limit. On the flight deck, the steam catapults fire every 30 seconds. 4 F-35C. Lightning II stealth fighters vanish into the morning haze. Their internal bays are packed with ADM 160 miniature air launch decoys. The F-35C releases the decoys. Suddenly, the Iranian radar screens, already strained by the Growler's jamming, explode. Where there were 5 targets, there are now 50. It appears as though a massive strike package of B-2 Spirit stealth bombers is heading straight for the target. Iranian commanders scramble every available resource, every radar, every interceptor, every frequency, to engage the Phantom fleet. They chase digital mirages, while the real threat moves at the speed of light through their own landlines. Beneath the mountain at Natanz, 300 feet of reinforced concrete and granite stand between the world and Iran's nuclear ambitions. This is the fortress that the GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator was built to destroy. Yet today, the darker weapon doesn't need to punch through the ceiling. It is already in the wires. Inside the centrifuge hall, 5,000 high-speed rotors spin. These machines rotate at 1,000 miles per hour, faster than the speed of sound, separating isotopes with surgical precision. The virus delivered via the S-300's own command link finds the centrifuge's logic controllers. It does not shut the machines down. That would be too obvious. Instead, it issues a silent command. Increase frequency by 2%. The change is subtle. Everything appears normal, but the machines begin to hum. The centrifuges reach their critical frequency. One rotor shears, exploding. A fragment of carbon fiber shrapnel traveling at 1,500 miles per hour punctures a neighboring rotor. Within 12 seconds, the centrifuge hall becomes a high-speed slaughterhouse. 5,000 machines are torn apart in a chain reaction of metal and fire. Pressurized uranium hexafluoride gas, highly corrosive and lethal, sprays into the room, forming a green toxic fog that melts the seals on the heavy blast doors. The facility's automated safety system detects the pressure drop and assumes a conventional bomb hit. It seals the ventilation shafts to prevent a radiation leak. That decision proves fatal. The gas has nowhere to escape. The underground hall becomes a high-pressure furnace, and the temperature spikes to 2,000 degrees. On the surface, Iranian military commanders realize they have been chasing ghosts. The ADM 160 decoys disappear from their screens as they run out of fuel. They recognize that the F-35C fighters were never there to strike. Then, the ground shakes. A magnitude 4.2 seismic shock ripples through the province of Isfahan. The pressure inside Natanz bunker has reached a catastrophic limit. A massive, terrifying column of fire erupts from the emergency vent shafts, shooting 2,000 feet into the atmosphere. To the infrared sensors on US early warning satellites, the heat signature is off the charts. It looks exactly like a tactical nuclear weapon has detonated inside the mountain. The Iranian Deadman Protocol triggers. Commanders believe they have been hit with a first strike nuclear device. An order flashes to every coastal battery: total retaliation. The Iranians unleash everything. A massive volley of college-grade anti-ship ballistic missiles arcs into the sky. They follow a ballistic trajectory to the edge of space, then tip over and dive at Mach 4. A 1,400-pound warhead moving at 3,000 miles per hour does not need pinpoint accuracy. The sheer energy will crack a carrier's keel like a dry twig. The carrier strike group's wall of steel awakens. The Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, led by the USS Nitsa, swing their Mark 41 vertical launch systems into the wind. Deck hatches fling open, and a continuous stream of Standard Missile 6 interceptors roars into the sky. The Standard Missile 6 is a masterpiece of engineering, capable of striking a target moving at supersonic speed. But there are too many incoming missiles. The Aegis combat system tracks 40 separate tracks, prioritizing those with the steepest dive angles. The first college-grade missile is intercepted at 80,000 feet. The second is hit, the third follows. But the fourth missile seeker locks onto the massive radar return of the USS Abraham Lincoln and begins its terminal dive. The carrier's failing close-in weapon system, the Phalanx, screams to life. The 20mm Vulcan cannon fires at a rate of 4,500 rounds per minute. The missile is shredded 300 yards off the port beam. Its massive motor casing misses the flight deck by 50 feet, sending a wall of seawater over the parked aircraft. Yet these missiles are only the first wave. The Iranians employ a time-on-target strategy. While the destroyers stare at the sky, the horizon fills with noise. From the jagged limestone coasts of the Hormuz province, the radar floor vanishes, replaced by 60 distinct high-speed returns. These are Zulfiqar fast attack craft. They travel at 65 miles per hour, the speed of a highway chase, but on open, choppy water. Each boat is a suicide delivery system packed with 600 pounds of specialized high explosives. They split into 3 distinct wolf packs, radiating out to surround the carrier strike group from the north, east, and south. Their size makes them too small for the Standard Missile 6 interceptors to track and too fast for the heavy destroyers to outrun. The destroyer USS Nitsa pivots hard to port, its wake forming a massive churning wall of white water. The Mach 45 5-inch gun on the foredeck begins its cycle. Every 2 seconds, the barrel recoils with a bone-shaking crack. Each 70-pound shell is a sledgehammer. The first round hits a lead Zulfiqar dead center, the boat disintegrating in a 100-foot pillar of orange flame. For every boat that vanishes, 3 more zigzag through the spray of misses. The swarm doctrine overwhelms the destroyer's fire control computer by presenting more targets than the barrels can traverse. The distance closes to 2,000 yards. The USS Abraham Lincoln's starboard side erupts in tracer fire. The Mark 38 Bushmaster 25mm chain guns take over. These weapons fire 200 rounds per minute of high explosive incendiary ammunition. A Zulfiqar boat is caught in the burst. The 25mm shells rip through the outboard motors, sending the craft into a cartwheel that flips it into the path of its own wingman. On the carrier's catwalks, gator teams, sailors armed with M240 machine guns and M2 Browning heavy machine guns open fire. They aim for the pilots of the boats, trying to kill the brain of the suicide craft before it can make the final turn. One Zulfiqar breaks through the curtain of fire. It is 500 yards out and accelerating. The boat's pilot slams the throttle and dives overboard. The carrier's Mach 15 close-in weapon system mount on the aft deck spins down. The radar-guided 20mm Vulcan cannon spins up to 4,500 rounds per minute. The rounds strike the Zulfiqar's bow, halting the boat's forward momentum as if it had hit a brick wall. The explosion is massive. A shockwave slams into the side of the USS Abraham Lincoln, shattering windows on the bridge and buckling the heavy steel plates of a refueling station on the hangar deck. A fireball rolls up the side of the ship, reaching toward the parked F-35C, lightening 2 fighters. A second Zulfiqar pack reaches the USS Nizza. 2 boats coordinate their run, one drawing the Mark 45 gun's fire, while the other aims for the destroyer's thin-skinned stern. The first boat is vaporized, but the second slams into the destroyer's hull at 50 miles per hour. The explosion does not sink the ship, but it shears the propeller shaft on the port side. The USS Nizza begins to list and loses speed. The wall of steel is breaking. The swarm senses the weakness and shifts its entire weight toward the crippled destroyer, preparing for a final mass execution. Then, the electronics die. The final missile did not aim for the ship, it aimed for the sky above it. It detonates 5 miles up, triggering a localized electromagnetic pulse. The effect is a tactical blackout. The automated close-in weapon system mounts lose their radar locks and default to manual control. The Aegis system, the brain of the strike group, is forced into a hard reboot. The USS Abraham Lincoln becomes a 1,000-foot blind giant. In the sudden, terrifying silence of the electronic blackout, a sonar technician on the USS Nizza hears a sound that makes his heart stop. A high-pitched mechanical shriek that cuts through the water like a buzzsaw. An Iranian Ghadir-class submarine, which has been motionless on the seafloor for 3 days, finally finds its opening. It has fired the Hoot, a rocket-powered torpedo that travels inside a bubble of gas to eliminate water resistance. It moves at 200 miles per hour. At 200 miles per hour, there is no physical defense. No decoy can distract it. No hull can withstand it. The crew on the carrier's bridge watches the wake of the torpedo approaching. It is a white line of foam, moving with the speed of a jet car. The USS Abraham Lincoln is trapped in its own turn. The rudder is stuck in the last position before the EMP hit. 10 seconds later, sailors on the hangar deck clutch the tie-down chains, waiting for the world to end. They can hear the mechanical scream of the torpedo's rocket motor through the hull plates. 5 seconds later, the torpedo is 50 feet from the hull. It is aimed directly at the number 2 reactor compartment. If it hits, the carrier will become a radioactive tomb at the bottom of the Gulf. Then the darker weapon speaks one last time. The virus, now permeating the entire Iranian naval tactical network, identifies the Hoot's internal guidance computer. It executes a hard override command that had been buried in the code months ago. The Hoot's control fins snap to the left. The gas bubble collapses under the sudden torque. The torpedo veers violently. Its rocket motor flame out, causing it to tumble. It misses the carrier's hull by less than 3 feet. The wake of the torpedo is so close that the bubbles scrape the paint off the carrier's side. The torpedo screams past and detonates a mile away in the open ocean, sending a 500-foot plume of water into the air. The Zulfiqar swarm, seeing their ultimate weapon fail and the carrier's backup systems beginning to reboot, breaks off the attack. They vanish back into the coastal mist, leaving behind a sea of burning debris and sinking holes. The USS Abraham Lincoln does not wait to see if they return. The strike group turns south, pushing through the debris of the battle toward the deep waters of the Arabian Sea. The distraction gambit was a success. The Iranian nuclear program has been vaporized without a single US bomb touching the soil. But as the carrier's crew begins the grim work of repairing fire damage and accounting for the dead, a chilling realization settles over the Pentagon. The seismic shock at Natanz, the event that resembled a nuclear hit, triggered a chain of events that almost ended the world. For 45 minutes, while the carrier was under fire, the nuclear football was open. The United States was seconds away from a retaliatory nuclear strike because our own digital weapon had worked too well. We had created a scenario where the enemy had to believe they were being nuked, forcing them into a use-it-or-lose-it retaliation. Now, the question no one is asking, what if the darker weapon had not been programmed with that final backdoor for the Hoot torpedo? The mission at Natanz would still have been a success. The facility would still be gone, but the USS Abraham Lincoln would be at the bottom of the ocean, and the United States would be in a full-scale nuclear exchange with a desperate enemy. Was the backdoor a calculated safety measure, or was it a lucky guess by a programmer who did not know the carrier would be in the line of fire? The next time we unleash a digital ghost, we might not have a backdoor. We might not have a distraction, and we could discover that once you teach a machine how to kill, you cannot teach it how to stop. What happens to the next strike group?